What's up, you guys? Teller checking in for UFC Vegas 79. We got a matchup of two very talented lightweight fighters here. A little bit of a stylistic clash too. One of the best strikers in the division versus one of the best grapplers in the division. The number 6th and 7th ranked lightweight fighters. Mateusz Gamrot taking on Rafael. Fiziev. Should be a good fight. Other than that, we got the return of Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell taking on Dan Ige. Dan Ige's been doing his thing again as of recently. We have a rematch of Marina Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson, and just a couple other solid fights throughout the card. It's not really a huge event, but there's some good fights and definitely some spots to make money. You guys know how we do it here. We'll start at the bottom of this card, work our way up to the top. Plenty of content coming your guys' way here on the channel. We have the recap of UFC Inoue uploaded. You guys can see how we did on that event. Also, we have Dana White's Contender Series Week 7 already uploaded. If you're not watching this after Tuesday night, and then in that case, you obviously wouldn't care about that video. But yeah, I won't keep you guys anymore. If you please can, guys, hit that like button and subscribe. It does mean a lot to me. And catch me on all my social media on Instagram and Twitter. Scroll on the bottom there. It really would mean a lot to me if you guys can go follow me there. All right, let's go check out this first fight.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
Kicking the card off, we have a women's bantamweight matchup between Montserrat Rendon taking on Tamires Vidal. Tamires Vidal has fought in the UFC once already, had a very impressive finish against the tough Ramona Pascual. Hit her with that flying knee to the midsection and was really lighting her up from the moment the bell rung. The fight didn't last that long, only lasted 3 minutes, and I thought that was a very impressive debut for her there. Her only loss was via submission to Carol Rosa, but it's also worth noting that she had a DQ victory over Aylin Perez, and in that fight, I mean, depending on how you want to look at it, I mean, she was hit with some illegal knees, but Aylin Perez was the aggressor and was hitting her with those illegal shots there. But she's only 25 years old. She's a very fluid striker. Again, when we talk about that UFC debut fight that she had, we saw the fluidity in her movement. Even before she landed the fight-ending blow, I mean, she was landing some big shots early on as well. I like the way that she moves in there. I would definitely say she's more of a striking base fighter from what I've seen from her. And then on the other hand, we have Montserrat Rendon making her UFC debut at the age of 34 years old. She's a very physically imposing girl. I think she has a nice frame for the division, maybe carries some power. Although you take a look at all 5 of her victories, and they are all by way of decision. But I still would say she has a little bit of pop. You watch the film on her. She throws some heavy shots with her hands, but she's a very muscular girl. And she's coming off a split decision victory over a fighter that I'm not really that impressed with. In fact, she has a losing record right now, does Brittany Cloudy. I believe that she's 5-6 or 6-7. I know that she has a losing record right now, and that fight went to a split decision. Not really a good look there. She was submitted by Juliana Miller in a grappling match. We know that Miller is not a good MMA fighter, but she does have some jiu-jitsu skills. I don't know. Take that for what you will. I have a feeling that Tamires Vidal is just going to be much more fluid on the feet with her striking. And on the other hand, Rendon is going to be much more stiff, and that definitely points me towards Vidal landing more throughout this fight. Maybe she gets that fight-ending shot. That's a little bit harder to call, though, because Rendon has never been finished, and she's Mexican, and I have a feeling that she's going to be a very tough fighter. I have a feeling that she can take a shot, and I wouldn't be surprised if this fight goes to a decision. But it is worth noting. We'll take a look at Vidal as well. Out of Vidal's 7 victories, 2 subs, 2 knockouts, 3 decisions, so a little bit of everything, and she was submitted once. But also noting that Rendon has never had any finish and out of all her victories. So yes, I am siding with Tamires Vidal. I think that's definitely the way that you got to go. It's a women's bantamweight fight. Maybe there's some question marks if you really want to pry into it, but I think Vidal should be just fine here in this matchup. She opened up as a -208 on my bookie, and she is now a -250. So she's a pretty hefty favorite. if I do see her getting into some trouble, I would say that Rendon needs to make things ugly, and I think she needs to really hang on her and wear on her and use the physicality that she brings to the cage, using her muscles and her strength, and really just try to make this an ugly fight. Maybe sneak in some shots in the clinch and whatnot. But again, overall, I see Vidal just being much more fluid, and I like her to win a unanimous decision. We'll drop down 2 weight classes, sticking in the women's side of things here. We got Mizuki Inoue taking on Hannah Goldy. Now, you guys all remember when I chatted it up with Hannah Goldy here on the channel, had a live interview with her. You guys can pull it up, one of my old MMA live discussion videos. She was on an edible, basically admitting that on the video. And, she's a chill chick. I will say this, as she started to blow up a little bit, and her Instagram has really blown up. She has a lot of followers, even though she hasn't really been having a lot of success in the cage, but probably has the OnlyFans going on and all that type of stuff. I'm sure she's making plenty of money outside the octagon. She kind of big time to me. After we did the interview and whatnot, I shot her a little message. It was about one of her fights, in regards to one of her fights, and she, it was seen, and she kind of big shot at me, didn't respond back, so it's all good there. But she got a little bit of karma coming back her way when she faced off over in England, when she took that loss to Molly McCann. If you guys remember how that went, she got finished in devastating fashion. Before that, she had the submission victory over Emily Whitmire. I believe she pulled off an armbar there. Was defeated by Diana Belbita in a very ugly fight. She also lost to Miranda Granger in a very ugly fight. Now, if you remember Hannah Goldy's background, she got into the sport of MMA. She was doing those Thai Bo type of classes just to exercise. I believe she was lifting a lot of weights. She is a very physically strong girl. You see the shape that she has been in some of her fights, very muscular. So she brings that to the cage, but she's very stiff. And, I will say this, though. She throws a nice body, a nice body kick, a nice power body kick. That is something that she has landed, in the past and whatnot. And saying all that, though, I do believe that Mizuki Inoue, she's 29 years old. I do believe that she's the more polished fighter. I know that Mizuki is coming off a long layoff. She hasn't fought since her last fight, which was in the middle of 2020 against Amanda Lemos. She went to a decision with Lemos. I know it's been a long time since she's been in there. But she's still only 29 years old, I believe. Yeah, 29 years old. And, I have a feeling that she's been working on her craft. From what I've been able to see from her, and what I've been able to pull up, she's the type of fighter that I don't think is just sitting on a couch, taking edibles, and doing OnlyFans. All right, this is a martial arts type of fighter. You know what I'm saying? This is a girl that's really part of the traditional martial arts, and I think that she's been working on her craft, and I think that she is the more well-rounded fighter here. I think that she can get the better of Hannah Goldy on the feet. And if Hannah Goldy wants to try to go down to the mat, she's shown some evolution with her ground game. I think Inoue will be much more polished there as well. Inoue has gone to a decision with Verna Jandy Roba, the very dangerous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Not overly impressed with her 2 victories in the cage against Yanin Wu and Vivian Pereira. Vivian Pereira is like 5 foot. Not overly impressed with those 2 victories. They went to a decision, but she's been battle tested, man. She's been in there with some recognizable names. Went to a decision with Alexa Grasso, Karolina Kovacevic back in the day. She's definitely been in there with some legit fighters, and she's always fought a tough fight. Okay, so she's a tough customer. I don't think she'll flake out here. I think that I think she gets her hand raised here. She'll also have a 4.5-inch reach advantage on the feet. And I just think that she's the better fighter anywhere this goes. We'll see if Hannah Goldy brings into the cage some evolution in her game. But from what we've seen from her, kind of hard to back Hannah Goldy, especially after she didn't reply to the DM there. So Hannah Goldy, she is a plus 252 right now. She is a pretty big underdog here. Especially for a women's mixed martial arts fight in the strawweight division. Not crazy about that line. So in retrospect, Mizuki Inoue, a minus 322 favorite. It's a steep line. Women's mixed martial arts fights can play out closely, but at the same time, you don't have to be as worried for Hannah Goldy landing some KO like you do with men's lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight fights. If you guys know what I'm saying, it's a lot more unlikely. And then also, Inoue, you take a look at her losses. All of her losses have been by way of decision. So she's never been knocked out, never been submitted either. She's a very well-rounded fighter defensively. And, well, I shouldn't say that. She can eat shots in the feet at times, but I'm not that worried about Goldy striking. So yes, I'm on Mizuki, Inoue to get the job done here. Can Inoue get a finish? I wouldn't bank on it. Goldy was finished for the first time in that last fight against McCain. I'll say decision victory for Mizuki Inoue. Over to the heavyweight division. There's an interesting contrast in this fight, right? You have Jake Collier, a guy that is not physically imposing, to say the least, a guy that used to fight in the welterweight division in the UFC, carries a lot of flab on him. Then you got Mohammed Usman, the brother of Kamaru Usman, who is a physical specimen. I mean, this guy is, he is jacked up. He's not the most athletic, I would say. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. He's not the most fluid with his movement, at least with his striking. I shouldn't say he's not athletic. He is athletic. He's explosive. He's just a little stiff. His striking is stiff, although he carries some serious power. You guys remember that knockout he had against Zach Payuga? Even though he was losing that fight still, he dug deep and landed that big shot there. In his last fight, I'll tell you what, it was a very frustrating fight for me because I had an official play against him on the brother of, on the brother of Justin Tafa and Junior Tafa there. And, Junior Tafa almost finished him on the feet, but Junior Tafa had no takedown defense in that fight. And, props to Usman for being intelligent and going out there and continuously going out there to wrestle. He was smart by not trying to strike it out with Tafa because Tafa would have knocked him out. Also showing high fighter IQ, something that his brother has shown throughout the years. Kamaru Usman, a very intelligent fighter. That's something that I like when I'm betting on these guys, right? I know a lot of you guys want to just see exciting fights, but when you're betting on fighters, you want to see them making intelligent decisions in the cage. I think that Jay Collier will have the striking advantage here, especially in the first round. But as this fight goes on, I do not trust Jake Collier's cardio. And as Mohammed Usman shoots some takedowns in this fight, and if he can solidify some of those and he gets on top of Collier, we can see Collier flopping around on the canvas like a fish out of water, similarly to how we saw him against Chris Barnett. All right, you remember this. He got finished by Chris Barnett. Once he was on his stomach, he couldn't roll over, and he was just getting smacked around in there. So just know at times he can be dangerous with his combinations, and he actually impresses a little bit more than some of you guys think with his boxing skills. It's just he has bad cardio. At times, sometimes he's gone in there and he's looked okay, but I don't trust him. I don't trust his diet. I don't trust his professionalism. I think that Mohammed Usman is taking the game a little bit more seriously, and I think that when you take a look at Collier, who has already fought 22 times, and then you look at Mohammed Usman, who's just on his just coming into this fight with his 11th pro victory, 11th pro fight behind him. This is a guy that I think is just still more devoured into the game right now. He's fully in. He's learning from his brother. He's trying to become a better fighter. I think he's more hungry, and I do like Mohammed Usman in this spot. I think I just think they'll have a speed advantage in there, and I think the wrestling will come into play. I think he gets on top of Collier, and Collier starts to fade. That's kind of how I'm seeing that fight take place. We'll take a look at the betting line. On Jazz Sports, Usman opened up as a -149. It's a little interesting here. Dipped all the way down to a -180, and then started to go back the opposite way towards that -150 range again. So people kind of second guessing the movement that they've been putting on Usman. On my bookie, the same kind of pattern you see there. It's dipping back. So maybe some information is coming out that Collier's coming into this fight in good shape. Not sure. We'll see what else we could pull up. I mean, I haven't really seen anything on his IG that's made me think that he's taking this fight extremely serious. And I will take Mohammed Usman to get the job done. As far as if he's going to go out there and get a finish, again, we take a look at some of his recent losses. He has been going to a decision for the most part, besides the Barnett fight and the Aspinall fight, but we know Aspinall's an absolute stud. I'm going to actually say there's a good chance Mohammed Usman gets the finish here. I think that if he gets on top of him and puts him in the right position, I could see him maybe step in the ground and pound up a little bit more, and maybe just volume striking to the point that the referee stops the fight. I think there is a possibility for that, so keep an eye on that as well. Mohammed Usman to get his hand raised once again. Jacob Malkoun taking on Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage getting another opportunity to step down in the octagon. I was almost certain that we would never see him again after the performance that he just put on against Cedricus Dumas. It was horrendous. I did have a slight official play on him. he looks so bad in that fight, man. And it's one thing to look bad, but when I'm watching you perform and I'm questioning the fact that if you're throwing the fight, that's not a good look. If you remember, he actually got out grappled by Dumas. A lot of people would have thought that he would have been outstriked in that fight, but he was on his back, just holding guard, not even trying to get back up. It's like he was waiting for the fight to end. It was really, really a questionable performance. He's had a lot of questionable performances throughout his career. If you want to date all the way back to the William Knight fight, where he had a good position early on and then just lost it and got smashed up by William Knight. Of course, the big victories that he's had were against Dalcha Lingambula, a fighter that really could never get his hand raised in the octagon. I would say the Tresean Gore victory was his big one where he clipped him. But if you remember, Tresean Gore was almost hospitalized the day before the fight due to a weight cut situation. So I think that he was just out of it. I am not a believer in Brundage, to say the least. This is a guy that has a wrestling pedigree, a wrestling background, and he had absolutely nothing for Cedric Dumas. And listen, if you know what you're watching in there, Cedric Dumas, good props to him for evolving, but he was not all that. He didn't evolve that much. That was Brundage was looking like shit in there. All right, so now you got a guy in Jacob Malkoun, who's one of the more underrated fighters in the division. He arguably beat Brendan Allen. Jacob Malkoun is a very, very solid grappler. He's very strong when he gets a hold of you. He's a very good grappler. We could take a look at what he's been doing. He's 7-2 as a pro, just nine pro fights, coming off a victory against Nick Maximov. We talked about the Brendan Allen fight. A lot of people thought that he won that fight. He had success with his wrestling and his grappling. Out-grappled AJ Dobson. Dobson looked good in his last fight. Out-grappled Abdul Razak Al Hassan. And then his one lone loss in the UFC was against Phil Haas, which we know Phil Haas is dangerous. And he caught him early on in that fight. But make no mistake, Jacob Malkoun is a good fighter. He's a legitimate UFC middleweight fighter. He's only 28 years old. You're going to see growth with him. I feel very, very confident that he will get the better of the grappling over Cody Brundage from what I just saw Brundage do against Cedric Dumas. Malkoun is a much more dangerous and polished grappler than a Cedric Dumas. And you know what? I don't think that the fight will take place in the feet that much. I think that it will get ugly. You'll see some scrambles, and Malkoun will prevail in this spot here. This is one of my more confident picks on the card, and we'll go take a look at the betting line, where you'll see it's very high. Malkoun is as high as a -526 on my bookie, opened up as a -500. Slight movement already, still going his way, even with the line opening up that high. He's a flat -550 on Bovada. He's almost a 6-1 favorite at this point on some of these books. And you know what? I don't have a damn problem with it, because Cody Brundage absolutely sucks. In the welterweight division, we have Tim the Dirty Bird Means taking on Andre Fialho. Both these fighters coming off a good amount of losses. I believe both fighters coming into this fight coming off 3 losses in a row. Andre's losses may be a little bit more concerning with the way that he's just going out there getting knocked out in every fight. Was just knocked out by Jake Matthews, Muslim Salikov, and Joaquin Buckley. All of those fights really taking years off of his MMA career. There's no question about that. But he's still only 29 years old, compared to a guy in Tim Means that is 39 years old. So a major advantage as far as the age goes. One thing we got to note here, the last time he was in there was in May of this year. So he's coming in to this fight. He's coming into this fight off that knockout, and that knockout was about 5 months ago. I don't believe that is as long of a layoff as was needed for him. I think that he needs to take a solid year off from the fight game. I think this is probably not the best decision that he's making. He's only 29 years old. That's why I say that. But, maybe, a lot of people hop on the mic here and we talk about things like this, but a lot of us don't really know the ins and outs and what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe the UFC was kind of pressuring him to take this fight. I don't know. Maybe he just liked the matchup and was willing to jump back in there because he's taking on a 39-year-old guy in Tim Means, who's been getting finished a little bit himself. Tim Means was just caught in a guillotine, right? He was submitted, was it by Alex Morono, I believe? Besides that, you remember Kevin Holland made quick work of him. He was just submitted by Alex Morono as well. And he did go to a decision with Max Griffin. Before that, a couple of victories. He actually had a victory over Mike Perry. And listen, if you don't remember Tim Means back in the day, he was a very, very good fighter, man. He really was. He was one of the more underrated fighters back in the day. It's just there's been a clear dip in his game, and as to be expected with the guy that has almost 50 professional fights, and he's 39 years old. So I was always a huge Tim Means fan. I remember when he used to fight in the lightweight division. He was so long and rangy for that division. Settled in the welterweight division. I always love to back my boy Tim Means, but you know what? I can't back him here. I just feel the age is a problem. I think that Andre Fialho will be just a step ahead. He'll be a little bit quicker. Now, I don't say it with a lot of confidence because I don't trust Andre's chin. I think there is also a very realistic possibility that Tim Means could clip Andre, and Andre could be doing the chicken dance in the cage once again, like we've seen him doing recently. Andre is a guy, he's very polished, training with Henry Hooft and all those guys over at Team Killcliff FC. But the problem is he's one of those types of fighters. He's like so technically sound, but he's a little delayed with his movement. On his exits after he strikes at times. He's very technically sound with his offensive striking, and I feel like as of recently he's there to be hit on the way out. Hopefully Henry's working on that with him, and otherwise it could be a rough night for him. Tim Means is a dangerous boxer. So yes, I got Andre winning this fight. That age difference, man, the age discrepancy is serious there. So Tim Means has to slow down. Andre right now over at Jazz Sports, he opened up as a minus 207. He's now a minus 181. That's what I expected to see happen with this line. I did expect to see the line come down on Andre because people are going to look at those 3 losses and see how he's been finished. And I just don't know who's all going to be backing him any type of lines over minus 200. He's a minus 195 right now. Bovada opened as a minus 210. So all movement going towards Tim Means' way. I would say you just sit back and enjoy this fight and watch it because I don't know how you're really trusting either of these men. If you're going to play a value line, then maybe you wait for Andre's line if it continues to dip down and you can get it like minus 170, 160, which would be nice, maybe a bargain line like that. Or if it goes back the other way, or if you grab Tim Means early, maybe you're just playing the value on that line there, but I don't know how you trust either of these men. Miles Johns taking on Dan Argueta. Miles Johns, if you guys remember, he fought on Dana White's Contender Series. I don't know what season it was off the top of my head. Might have been season 1. He was one of the OGs from Dana White's Contender Series. Dan Argueta fought on The Ultimate Fighter. I've been very high on this fighter, Dan Argueta, man. I think that he is a guy, he has the nickname The Determined. I think that's a perfect nickname. This guy comes in phenomenal shape. This is the type of fighter that leaves no stone unturned. When you think of UFC caliber fighters, of course, that they're all crazy determined and they're doing all types of things to be the best version of themselves. But even then, there's different levels to each fighters in the UFC, to all the different fighters in the UFC. I believe that Dan Argueta is towards the top of the list when you're talking about a guy that's committed to the fight game right now. I really believe that. Everything I see from him online, the shape he comes in, if you know a little bit about him, if you remember him on the show, this is a legit fighter, man, on the rise right now. He's coming off a fight where he should have had a victory. If you remember, there was that early stoppage. I had an official play in him there. I was very annoyed with that, which is kind of funny because it just happened to me again this past weekend, right? With the Charez fight. That was the same thing that happened against Ronnie Lawrence. Ronnie Lawrence, though, also going through some tough times. I think he temporarily retired from the sport, if you guys saw him on IG. But, don't get it twisted. Dan Argueta went out there and was taking that fight. He was finishing that fight. So before that, had the victory against Nick Aguirre. Then had that UFC debut loss against Damon Jackson, where I thought he actually showcased himself pretty well. And remember, he was fighting a very tough Damon Jackson up a weight class, and made a mistake of not letting his hands go more late in that fight, kept resulting to his wrestling, and just the size advantage of Damon Jackson kind of nullified that. But I think that he learned from the mistakes there. I think that he's definitely working on his striking. He's becoming a more complete fighter, and I think he's a stud, man. I really do. Now, that being said, Miles Johns does a lot of similar things to what Dan Argueta does. These are fighters that are both kind of compact for the division, low center of gravity. Miles Johns also has some wrestling abilities, and he's been working on his striking too. He's had some decent performances, but I am definitely taking Dan Argueta here, man. I'm high in this dude, and I remember Miles Johns He hasn't been the most active fighter. I know he's coming off a victory against Vince Morales. I'm not too high on him there. He was submitted by John Castaneda. I still remember him making his UFC debut against Cole Smith, and that was a fight that played out very closely. I think it might have been a split decision. Was knocked out by Mario Batista after that. A couple victories here and there, 2 knockouts over Kevin Natividad and Anderson Dos Santos, 2 guys that couldn't stick it in the UFC. I think Dan Argueta's just cut a little bit from a different cloth. So let's take a look at what the line's talking about. Dan Argueta is a minus 180 currently on Jazz Sports. He opened as a minus 226. This is the trend we're really seeing. We're seeing action coming in on Miles Johns, and that could also be due to the fact that Dan Argueta did open up as a pretty hefty favorite, right? I mean, minus 226, that's a little bit of a high line. But if you like Argueta, maybe you sit back and you wait till you can get even a better line. Monitor that line. Anything 180, 190 down, I think is a solid line there. So I do like Dan Argueta to get the job done. And not sure if he gets the finish. I could see it being a grueling fight, and Dan Argueta has crazy cardio. Miles Johns, he was submitted by John Castaneda. That was just 2 fights removed. He was knocked out by Mario Batista. I will actually say I got Dan Argueta pulling off a sub in this fight. I think that he works the ground and pound and whatnot, but I think maybe he could set up some type of sub, an arm triangle sub or something like that. 9 of his victories, 4 of his 9 victories have come by way of sub. He has shown some skills there. Give me Dan Argueta to get a finish in the cage this upcoming Saturday night. In the featherweight division, we have Charles Air Jourdain taking on Ricardo Ramos. Both these fighters have been around for a little bit now, and take a look at the ages, man. Jourdain just 27 years old, Ramos just 28 years old. If these guys get it together, they still have plenty of time to make a run in this division. So remember now, Ricardo Ramos has had some fights in the bantamweight division. Charles Jourdain coming off that victory against Kron Gracie. Let's just kind of ignore that fight a little bit, because Kron Gracie, I don't know. We talk about these performances, like I talked about that one fight earlier, where you kind of question the fighter in regards to if they're literally trying to blow the fight on purpose. I always wonder that once in a while when I see some of these performances. Rarely, I'm not like some crazy conspiracy theorist, but occasionally I wonder, if some of these fighters let a couple of their family members and boys know, at least from the outside, like plan it in a certain type of way, and maybe there's some money put out there. I don't know. I mean, not that I think that Kron Gracie needs the money, but what was that? I don't know. I mean, what was he going out there and trying to do? I don't understand, so that was weird, man. Before that, though, Jourdain, he lost to Nathaniel Wood. He was kind of controlled a little bit in that fight with the grappling, even though Jourdain is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he does have skills there as well. The Shane Burgos fight was an absolute war, and a lot of people thought that fight could have potentially went either way. That was a close fight, and he really showcased himself there. Submitted Lando Venata before that, took out Andre Ewell. He was submitted by Julian Erosa. The upset king Erosa did pull off that upset there, but he had the knockout over Marcelo Rojo. Went to a draw with Joshua Coulibaugh. Coulibagh's a stud. He's been in there, man. He's been in there now for a while, all the way dating to his debut against Desmond Green. Listen, these guys are similar in some regards. I think that they remind me of each other a little bit. They're both talented strikers. Charles Jourdain has the kickboxing background. Again, you also mentioned, though, he is a jiu-jitsu player as well. Ricardo Ramos, a very tricky, wild striker. But at the same time, this is a guy that has 16 victories. He has 6 submissions, which is where the majority of his victories sit. So this guy does have submission skills. But Jourdain has really shown to have worked on his overall game, and I think that he's a fighter that would be hard to submit. And then on the feet, I think that this fight is going to play out pretty closely. Actually, I think that this is a very closely matched fight, and we'll talk about the betting line here in a second. Let's pull it up, because this is a fight that I think probably it should be closer. Or it is pretty close. I mean, currently Jourdain is a minus 144, but I would still say that it could potentially be closer. I really do feel this is almost a coin flip. I'm slightly edging Jourdain to take this fight. He's been looking good as of recently, and we've seen Ricardo Ramos have some hiccups. Really, when you look at his more recent fights, we've seen more hiccups at Ramos. He's been a little bit more unreliable, whereas Jourdain's been more reliable. Again, even when you take a look at the losses, the Shane Burgos loss, you don't really look at that like a loss. And I think that Jourdain's a little bit more reliable, but I'm not crazy about anything minus 150 and up, that for sure. And, it would have to, you see a minus 150 over on Bet Any Sports, but I think that Jourdain should be like a minus 130. So just to so you guys can catch how I'm feeling about the line and where it should be. Maybe a minus 125, 135, and Ramos should be a slight dog. I think Ramos has potential to go out there and showcase himself. So a slight edge on Jourdain. This fight should be a wild one, a tricky one. Maybe Ramos lands another wild shot in there. It's also worth mentioning, right? He's coming off another crazy finish, right? He finished Danny Chavez with that it was with a spinning back elbow, right? He hit him with it. He's landed a couple of those spinning attacks, so should be a good one. Let's see how it plays out. And I will edge Charles Jourdain just to be a little bit more grounded and edge this fight out. In the welterweight division, we got my boy Bryan Battle taking on AJ Fletcher. First thing that stands out to me is the reach advantage that Bryan Battle has in this match here. He has just about a 7.5-inch reach advantage. He's not really that much taller though, about a 3-inch height advantage. Both these guys young, Battle 28 years old, AJ Fletcher just 26 years old. I think both these guys have a promising UFC career ahead of them. Even if AJ Fletcher goes out here and gets a loss, sneak peek, I am taking Battle. I think that AJ Fletcher still will bounce back and get another opportunity in the cage. So far, coming off Dana White's Contender Series, he had that crazy flying knee over Leonardo Dimani. If you guys remember, that was a crazy finish on the show. He followed that up with 2 losses in a row, but against stiff competition in Ange Lusa and Matthew Semmelsberger. Both those guys are good fighters, man. And then he went out there and submitted Themba Gorimbo in his last fight, really showcased development in his game with the grappling and all that too. He's a dangerous dude. And, AJ Fletcher, fighting out of Louisiana. I know that he has gotten work with Dustin Poirier before. And then on the other hand, you got Bryan Battle. This is a fighter that's fought in the middleweight division, made the cut down to the welterweight division as of recently. I thought it was the perfect move for him. Bryan Battle looked amazing against Gabe Green in his last fight. Went out there and got the finish. Gabe Green's not an easy guy to put away. And Bryan Battle is as tough as they get. All right, if you remember, the loss that he took before that against Renat Fakhradinov was definitely shown to be a real threat in the division. Battle never gave in. He was bloodied up. He was hurt. He never gave in. And then we also mentioned victories over Takashi Sato. He knocked him out. Victories over Tresean Gore, Gilbert Urbina, Andre Petrosky. Remember that victory on the show? Petrosky's a stud. Those are all legit wins there. Urbina, Petrosky, Gore, Sato, a little older, but still Gabe Green. And the thing is, you just see where this is going. You see the momentum that Bryan Battle's bringing into these fights. I like Bryan Battle. He's extremely scrappy. He has that natural scrappy ability. He's a natural fighter. He's been polishing up his MMA game, and AJ Fletcher is an athlete and whatnot, but Battle has that length advantage, and I think he could land a little bit from the outside. He has a ground game as well. It's not, you ain't going to go out there and just take Battle down or submit him in a similar way that AJ Fletcher just did to Greenbow. So yes, I do like Bryan Battle to get the job done here. And right now, Bryan Battle is a minus 179 on Jazz Sports. He opened up as a minus 228, so the line trending towards AJ Fletcher, and this is another case of Battle opening up as a pretty big favorite, so you kind of see why. Same thing on Bovada, opened up as a minus 210, he's now minus 185, but again, they're opening that line pretty high, so the line might be just correcting itself. I don't think that we're going to see that line continuing to trend anywhere towards the minus 160, 150 range. I think Battle will settle in, and maybe you'll see it even dip back up to a 190, 200 by the time the fight takes place, especially when you see these guys square off on the scales. So give me my boy Bryan Battle here. I'll take Bryan Battle by a decision. This fight might play out a little bit scrappy, but he'll use that length. He'll land some big shots. I can see AJ Fletcher bloodied up a little bit. My boy Pooh Bear goes out there, gets the job done once again. And Bryan Battle always showing me love on IG. He follows me. He's liking. He's commenting a little bit here and there. Shout out to my boy Pooh Bear. 2 ranked strawweight fighters. We got Marina Rodriguez taking on Michelle Waterson. This is the rematch. Marina Rodriguez, she got the unanimous decision over Michelle Waterson the first time they fought. If you ask me, Michelle Waterson just won 1 of 5 rounds. I believe it was the 4th round where she used her grappling. She had some control time. Other than that, you know, Marina Rodriguez outstruck Michelle Waterson in every round. And, you know, this is a little bit of an interesting matchup. I know that Marina Rodriguez is coming off 2 losses in a row. I think that this is a fight where Michelle Waterson might have used her name a little bit, or some of her pull, knowing the UFC, some of the higher ups in the UFC, and really wanted this rematch. And I think that she got it. And with Rodriguez coming off a couple losses, I think that it just made a little bit of sense. You know, that's the only thing I could think of. Michelle Waterson probably believes that she now knows what she needs to change or do correctly in there to get a victory over Marina Rodriguez. Probably wants to use her grappling a lot more. And you know, Marina Rodriguez. We talked about the 2 losses. You know, she got knocked out by Amanda Lemos. That was not the. So she was knocked out by Amanda Lemos, and then she lost a decision to Verna Jandiroba, and that's a fight where she really struggled with her takedown defense. So I do expect Michelle Waterson to heavily attack the grappling aspect in this fight. I really think she's going to be shooting a lot on Marina Rodriguez, and I think she'll be working on that a lot. You know that she works with team Jackson Wink, gets a lot of working with Wink. If you remember back in the day, man, this was like the main camp. This was the gym, man. Back in the day when John Jones was just coming up, there were so many big fighters out there. Donald Cerrone came up over there. I mean, everybody was out there back in the day, and nowadays you really don't see any big names over there, man. Really, especially as far as up and comers go. You have Damon Blackshear. Damon Blackshear is one of the only fighters really making some noise from there right now. But just know that they know the game, and just expect Waterson to try to set up those takedown attempts and see if she could have success there. I will say that the fight will play out similarly to what it did the first time, man. Marina Rodriguez is just a more dangerous striker. It's also worth noting that Michelle Waterson is 37 years old, even though Rodriguez is 36, but still, Marina Rodriguez has that 3-inch reach advantage. She's a little bit taller. She's a little bit more rangy, and you know that she should continuously be working on the takedown defense. Even though she's been working on it for a long time now, she has 21 pro fights, and she still has cost her some fights. So the thing is, I just rewatched this fight. I just rewatched a couple rounds of this fight, and it's hard for me to say I see it playing out differently. Give me Marina Rodriguez to get the job done once again. Props to Waterson for wanting to try to get that rematch and take that back. But Rodriguez is a good fighter too, man. Don't sleep on her striking. Rodriguez is currently a minus 307. She opened up as a minus 336. So we saw the line trending the other way, stepping back a little bit. Essentially, though, she is a 3-1 favorite. I don't know. I have a feeling that this fight could play out a little bit closer than it did the first time. I could see it maybe being 3-2. Maybe Rodriguez has to, not 3-2. I'm thinking again, it's going to be a 5-round fight like it was the first time. No, now it will be a 3-round fight. And I can see maybe Waterson taking one of the 3 rounds. That's the route I'm going there. Maybe she gets a takedown and does enough to edge out one of those rounds. But overall, I think Rodriguez can take two rounds, and maybe Rodriguez lands a big shot as well. She's a dangerous striker. She might bust Waterson open. Do I want to pay a 3-1 price tag on it? I don't think so. I don't think so, especially with the performances that Rodriguez has just had recently. And then Waterson also, I know she's coming off some losses, but let me just note real quick. The Luana Pinheiro fight, that was a split decision fight, played out very closely, and it was submitted by Lemos before that, and then that was the Rodriguez fight, and before that she had the split decision victory over Angela Hill, which she really lost. But I digress. Let me not talk about this fight. I'm going on too long about it. Marina Rodriguez to win 2 of the 3 rounds and to take another decision over Waterson. In the featherweight division, Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell, the number 10th ranked featherweight fighter in the world. He's taking on Dan Ige, the number 12th ranked featherweight fighter. Dan Ige been bouncing back in the winning column again as of recently, coming off victories over Damon Jackson and Nate Landwehr. Had that big knockout victory over Damon Jackson. We know that Damon Jackson's he's a good grappler, but he is a guy that's vulnerable to being tagged with big shots. He has a little bit of giraffe syndrome. We haven't had a reference to the giraffe syndrome in a while, and Damon Jackson is a worthy culprit for me to bring that back up. And Nate Landwehr is a good fighter, but I do believe he was a little bit overhyped, in my opinion. Nate Landwehr, he's tough. I'm not the biggest fan of his striking. I know he has some wrestling skills. He's a tough overall fighter, but I don't know. I'm not too high on him. So, those 2 victories, it's great to see Ige get back into the win column, and especially with the way that he did it against Jackson. But this is a step up in competition. I do believe that Bryce is a step up. And when you look at the Movsar Evlovoya fight, Movsar has a very similar style to Bryce Mitchell, if you guys know what I'm saying, with the grappling and the pace that he pushes with his wrestling and grappling. And it lost to Josh Emmett and the Korean Zombie before that. The Korean Zombie loss, that's not really looking that good right now. I mean, the Korean Zombie's been he's been reckless in there, and I'm surprised in retrospect that Dan Ige couldn't find the mark in that fight. But back to this matchup here, Dan Ige, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So he does have some ground skills, but Bryce Mitchell, man, he's 28 years old, and this dude pushes the pace. He pushes the pace like very, very few do. This guy is nonstop action. He's coming off a very tough loss where he got knocked out against potentially the second best guy in the division, right? And Ilia Topuria. Topuria teed off with some big shots on him. If you guys remember, that was an official play of mine. We did grab Topuria there. It's not very often you're going to be able to grab that kind of line on Topuria too. So I loved capitalizing on that matchup there. But don't get it twisted. That doesn't mean that I'm a type of guy that's going to continuously fade Thug Nasty. I really, really believe this is a guy that can just break a lot of fighters with his grappling and just take a lot of rounds. He's just so damn active in there. And I think right now you have probably as motivated of a Bryce Mitchell as we've ever seen in the UFC, coming off which was his first loss, his first pro loss. He had one loss on the Ultimate Fighter, but that was his first pro loss. And I think that there's going to be a fire lit under him here. And I think that he's going to get back in the win column. I think that he's just going to just be nonstop and closing the distance. And I just don't know if Dan Ige will be able to tee off with that big shot that he'll need to land to kind of shake things up. He'll need to get that distance and land some heavy shots. And Dan Ige does have dynamite in his hands, but I'm just favoring Bryce Mitchell closing the distance and just kind of being a tornado in there. He'll have the camo shorts on and all that. So it'll be a sight to see. Again, Bryce Mitchell's still only 28 years old. All right. He's not near a completed product. Dan Ige, 32 in the prime of his career, has plenty of experience, but Bryce is something else, man. And I was a little bit iffy on how I was going to go with this, but I am going to take my boy Bryce Mitchell, and I am a fan of his as well. So Bryce opened up as a minus 126, and he's now a minus 206. Crazy line movement going towards Bryce Mitchell's way. This fight essentially opened up as a pick'em, and you know what? That's where the line should be closer to. All right, I think this line should be much closer to a pick'em than a minus 204. Not crazy about the betting value on Bryce Mitchell at all right now, and I think that the value is all over Dan Ige. Like I said, I was very close to even picking Dan Ige to win this fight. Dan Ige right now is a plus 166 on Jazz Sports. If I had to cap this fight, I would say Dan Ige should be a plus 125. All right, just to put things into perspective there. And so the value on Dan Ige, if Dan Ige can use his footwork and uses his takedown defense and create some space, I think he's the more polished striker. I could see him bloodying up Mitchell, landing some big shots. I don't know if he can necessarily do what Ilia Topuria did. Ilia Topuria is cut from a different cloth, but Dan Ige has some of that type of ability, just a little bit at a lower level than a Topuria. Give me Bryce Mitchell again, just to make things ugly, push the pace, and take some rounds there. Here we go. We got the main event taking place in the lightweight division. Again, Rafael Fiziev, the number 6th ranked lightweight, versus Mateusz Gamrot, the number 7th ranked lightweight. The lightweight division is extremely deep. Rafael Fiziev, without a doubt, is one of the best strikers in all of MMA, realistically. But yeah, in the UFC, in the lightweight division, he's one of the best strikers. Now, he was just slightly outstruck by Justin Gaethje. But look how Justin Gaethje looked in his fight after that against Poirier. I mean, Justin Gaethje is hitting on all cylinders right now. And that fight played out a little bit closer than some of you guys remember. If you really want to rewatch that fight, Rafael Fiziev was only outstruck by like 6-7 strikes. The stat line was very, very even. The difference was that Gaethje had the crowd behind him, and every time he landed a strike, it was just the crowd was roaring and going crazy, and Gaethje kind of picked it up late. I'm not saying that it didn't have Gaethje winning that fight, but I really do believe that fight played out a lot closer than some of you guys think. Rafael Fiziev is a stud. This dude moves like he's in the Matrix with his striking. And then you got Mateusz Gamrot. He's a fighter that I really feel is so dangerous with his grappling. I mean, if you remember what he did to Jeremy Stevens back in the day, I mean, this is a guy that has 6 submission victories. But we'll take a look at what he's been doing in the UFC. I would say the best fight he's ever had was against Arman Sarukian, which I had him losing that fight. But just the heart that he showed and just to push in that fight the way that he did, keeping it as close as it was, I still think that was his best performance. He looked horrible against Beneil Dariush. He looked absolutely horrible in that fight. And then after that, he slightly edged out Jalen Turner. That was a fight he took on short notice. Potentially could have lost that fight, and that was a close one as well. Knocked out Scott Holtzman, submitted Diego Ferreira. We didn't mention that as well. He's a legit fighter, man. Even dating out to his victory over against Norman Park over in KSW when he was fighting back in his home country. He was the champion over there in KSW. He's legit, training out of American Top Team. Striker versus grappler, straight up. I mean, check this stat line out right here. Rafael Fiziev has showcased a 90% takedown defensive rate in the octagon. That's very impressive. He's not an easy guy to take down. We will also note, though, you take a look at who Rafael Fiziev has been fighting. Justin Gaethje, not known to use his wrestling skills. RDA does have some grappling skills and looks to push the pace there. But besides that, nothing really to talk about. He was clipped or finished early by Magomed Mustafayev, I believe, with the spinning kick or something like that. Alex White, long gone. Mark Diakese, I'm not even mentioning his wrestling. I know that's all he likes to do these days, but Hanato Moicano, he knocked him out in devastating fashion. Not a lot of wrestlers here. Mateusz Gamrot is on a different level compared to who Rafael Fiziev has faced in the past. That being said, I think that Rafael Fiziev has a significant edge on the feet. This fight will kick off. Every round will kick off on the feet. Rafael Fiziev can start you and knock you out very quickly. Gamrot can submit you, but I feel more confident in Rafael Fiziev. I do. I got Fiziev winning this fight. Now, I do worry a little bit about his cardio as this fight goes to the later rounds. Gamrot's very proven there. I do worry a little bit that Fiziev may fade. But I just think that heavy grappling type of attack, it's not going to look good for the judges' scorecards when Fiziev is moving out of the way, stuffing a couple of those, landing those big shots. Even if he's taken down, if he could work his way back up, land some heavy kicks and heavy shots, I think he snags rounds like that. And I like the energy. I like the energy that Fiziev is bringing to the table right now, man. He's a wild dude, and I like that. Kind of has like a Khamzat Chimaev type vibe to him. And I am going to take Rafael Fiziev to get the job done. And of course, there's a very realistic possibility that he gets the knockout. Anytime Fiziev is in there, Fiziev could always get a knockout. He opened up as a -147. At one point in time, he was a -129. He's now a -157. Got to monitor this line. This line's a little bit all over the place. I could see it going back and forth more so. Even from here, I could see him dipping back. The line dipping back closer to even odds again. But all in all, I just have to side with Fiziev. And again, I look at that Jalen Turner fight. I just felt like Gamrot was falling into some problems on the feet there. And I think that Fiziev is even more of a dangerous striker than Turner. I could see him running into some similar problems there, trying to force and push those takedowns, which can make him vulnerable as well. But it's a great fight. Give me Rafael Fiziev. So we will slide over to our parting words, our closing thoughts. And I'm not hitting you guys with anything too deep here, but just throwing out some random interesting thoughts and just some content your way. I've been listening to a lot of wild stuff on YouTube. I'm into this type of stuff. Like I'm big into like pirates and the lifestyle that pirates lived back in the day. And for that matter, I'm interested in a lot of just older and more ancient type of civilizations and how the lifestyle was. I find it intriguing, and sometimes I kind of wish I lived in those times. I feel like my personality is a little bit more suited for it. Of course, it's easy to say that now, because obviously it's brutal. It was brutal in a lot of those cultures and those times, and you know, you could say you want to live in those times, but you could really went through some crazy stuff. You know, check this out. I've been learning some of the punishments that pirates would do to each other if they did certain things, like if you insulted the captain or if you did certain things, and it's crazy what some of the stuff they would do to you. Excuse me for not having the two names on me right now, but there's these two type of punishments, right? Check this out. One of them, and I want to know, you guys comment below, which punishment would you rather have? All right, the one punishment, they would leave you on like a sandbar or like a little deserted island, like one of those real small ones. You know, think about in the Caribbean how it is. You know, I grew up in that vicinity, so I kind of know. If you don't know, there's a lot of little sandbars, and there's a lot of those types of like little island type things, and they would just drop you off there. They would leave you with a bottle of rum. And a lot of these sandbar type islands, there was no cover, no nothing, and they would just leave you there to be cooked, unless maybe another pirate ship found you, or if you somehow figured something out. I don't know if you're fishing, or what I was thinking, maybe I'll try to dig some type of hole and build some type of housing, try to fish, and maybe eventually figure something out. That was one punishment. Another one was, and just to stick on that too, sometimes they would leave you there and then they would actually come back and check up on you, and they would still kill you if they saw that you were doing okay. And like if you were more on an island or something like that, they'd come back and mess with you. There were some crazy stories going on there. And then one of the other punishments, there was this thing where they kind of take a rope that circulated around the boat, and they would like tie you to it, and they would start ripping it up, and you basically get dragged under the bottom of the boat and pulled up from the other side. They would hang you there, and then they would put you back and forth through it. So you can't breathe while you're underwater, obviously, and you're getting scratched up and bloodied up and you know, really stabbed up from all the barnacles and all the sharp shells and whatever's in the bottom of the boat. And a lot of that the cuts would kill you and whatnot. And I guess if you were able to survive, then you were able to survive. They'd bring you back up, but they said a lot of the guys were just absolutely handicapped and all brutalized. So which one of those would you rather go through? How about that? You could just say, I don't know the names of them, but you could say which one you want. All right, so that's my closing thoughts for you. How do you guys like those? I'm a little out of it now, as you guys can see, man. I've been talking on the mic for a little bit. It is 1:30 a.m. Here Monday night, and we're going to start editing this video and get it out to you nice and early, hopefully for Tuesday morning. All right, guys. Appreciate all your guys' support. Please like this video, subscribe, catch me on all my social media. I'm going to go snack out a little bit and then pass out. Signing out, Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.